Yeah, Daniel Zebulon Matthews is up. He's the new Joe Ryan, technically. We're going to talk about Zebby Matthews, who's set to make his big league debut. Also going to talk about a notable recall in the National League Central. A couple of guys that are back from injury, a couple of guys that just hit the shelf, which stinks. One option that, was kind of breathtaking for me this weekend, and a second half surge. It's all brought to you by BetMGM. This is the Just Baseball Show for Tuesday, August 13th. Jack and Aram. It's August 13th, but I was walking through Target last night and I saw the pumpkin cold brew from stock, and I decided that it's pumpkin coffee season already on August
Oh, wow.
13th. Fair or foul?
I think it's fair. I think it's fair midway through August. Never been I do like pumpkin stuff, flavored stuff, but the coffee, it's a little much for me. But
I
that's a
was
separate conversation.
I was
I
late.
think it's fair mid-August. I
I
think that's
was
allowed.
late on the pumpkin grind. So
Yeah.
I was like growing up, I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna do that. Like I remember that feeling of like hand in the pumpkin, like when you were gonna
Oh, those are good. Yeah, yeah,
jack-o'-lantern. I
those
was
are
like,
gross.
that's disgusting. So I don't want to eat that. And then it turns out that it's really good.
It's just cinnamon. It's more the cinnamon. It's really the
Yeah.
cinnamon.
And like I went to Starbucks and the pumpkin spice latte changed my life. And now I'm just all about the pumpkin coffee. So that's what we got going on. Should we talk about this guy that doesn't walk anybody?
Yes, let's do that.
Uh,
Well, he does. That's not factual. He's walked 7 people.
oh, sorry. Yeah.
So yeah,
So I need you to grab the percentage point after I give this guy's 411. Zebby Matthews is an eighth round pick in 2022 out of Western Carolina. Where is that? That's in Cullowhee, North Carolina. That's his hometown. Western Carolina, the same place that produced Justice Bigby in the
yeah.
Tiger system, I think. And I would not have had on my bingo card coming into the 2024 season that Zebby Matthews beats Justice Bigby to the big leagues. The 24-year-old, 6'5", 225, the Twins right-hander, in 95 and two-thirds innings at Western Carolina in 2022. K'd 122. He walked 21. He gets to pro ball, 3 innings, 1 hit, no runs, 6 Ks, no walks. Okay, great. Good start, to your pro career that happened at the complex. 2023, 105 innings, 112 Ks, 15 walks. And Zebby Matthews this year by level, 4 starts with Cedar Rapids, 22 and two-thirds innings, a 1.59 ERA, 28 Ks, no walks. Then he goes to Double-A Wichita, 55 and a third innings, a 1.95 ERA, 63 Ks, 6 walks. And then he gets to Triple-A, 4 starts with St. Paul, 19 innings. He was hit hard, 24 hits, 12 earned is a 5.68 ERA. But in 19 innings, 23 Ks, 1 walk. So this guy on the year has a 2.6 ERA from high A to triple, and in 97 innings, 114 strikeouts, just 7 walks issued. And this guy, from doing what every little league coach asks of you, is a major leaguer. That's cool.
Well, it helps when your fastball jumps 2 ticks.
That
That
too.
definitely helps, but it's amazing. I mean, just seeing the command be this impressive from a pitching prospect, and doing that while your stuff ticks up too is pretty crazy. By the way, the percentage on the walk rate is 1.9% on the season, 30.5% on the strikeout rate. To usually sometimes when guys see an uptick in velocity and just kind of an uptick in stuff, it's a little bit harder to rein that in. So when your fastball goes from 94 to 96 and he's still pounding the zone and now doing it with more confidence because it's 96, it's going to get more whiffs. I mean, that's remarkable. And I think it's almost built up the command even more, because once you realize, hey, even though it's harder, I can still locate it the same way I could locate 92, 93, 94. It's like, well, now I can fill up the zone even more because guys aren't going to hit it as much. And he's filled up the zone plenty. 77% strike rate on the fastball is insane. But also it's been the development of the secondaries that have come along too. A cutter in the low 90s has been a big part of his success this year. He's landed that first strike at a 71% clip, and then a slider in the mid 80s that, is also ticked up and is sharper, is also been a pitch that's a strike at about 70%. So when your entire arsenal is a strike 71% of the time, he's mixed in a curveball and a changeup. The curveball looks a little bit better. Like that is absolutely wild. So that's the good news in a tough situation for the Twins, who just had really tough injury. Like they always do, it seems like. But yeah, of late, just several players, even one of their top hitting prospects going down, but Joe Ryan going down. Just having somebody ready and available that can fill in is great. And the biggest frustration with David Festa has been, well, he can't really go deep into games when he doesn't have it. And one thing that I think Zebby Matthews can do, even if he doesn't totally have it, even if he gives up 4 or 5 earned runs, going to be able to go deep into games and preserve that bullpen because he throws strikes. I think the stuff is good enough for him to eventually be a middle rotation arm, but that's going to come down to how well he sequences right out of the gate and how well he locates the fastball. And one of the things we talked about on the call up was like, he's almost in the zone too much right now. So that's going to be something to watch at the big league level. Like 68% in zone rate is crazy. So big league hitters will see that and they'll be ready to ambush. So just don't let them ambush. I'm sure he's going to be aware of that. I'm sure that the Twins are going to have him primed up for that. But that's just the one thing to watch, because since he's gotten up to AAA, he's given up a home run in every single start. I think that's a result of him getting ambushed a little bit. He can combat that very easily with sequencing. And when you have the command of his arsenal the way that he does, that's great. But that's just the one thing to watch. See, is how he kind of goes about it. Maybe he's a bit different than what we saw in the minor leagues out of the gate in the big leagues. Regardless, what an awesome story.
Are you going to be really disappointed when he walks 3 in his big league debut, or no? Are you going to say, hey, I can appreciate you trying to nibble a little bit? The thing that drives me not up a wall, because like I totally understand it and I empathize with these pitchers, is when they come up and they don't have the confidence around the strike zone or in the strike zone, and they end up walking 4 and they put themselves in a bad position. And then it's that one swing that does them in. I don't want to see that happen to him. But again, like he goes too far in the other direction. He's the other swing of the pendulum where he might be 2 around the strike zone. And hey, you make your big league debut. Here's an all-star that can hit 40 homers at the major league level. This is what's going to happen. It's 117. It went 450. How do you respond mentally? I'm a little worried about that. But at the end of the day, I'd much prefer this problem where I'm asking him to throw less strikes, fewer strikes, than the other problem where I'm like, dude, you got to find the strike zone here. That's what we're asking you to do.
No, that's the beautiful part of it. And that's been the frustration with Festa, of late, where he might not be a problem. If he's getting whiffs at the top with the fastball and he's hitting his spots, that's great. I think it's more so, if you're around the zone too much and you're not hitting your quadrants and hitting your spots, then you're not going to get away with as much, right? He's averaging 96. A lot of the pitches down the middle he gets away with because they're 97, 98. Not going to happen as much at the big league level. Yeah. So I think the floor is really high with a player like this. And even if he does get roughed up a little bit out of the gate, I don't know for sure if he will. I think he's going to end up turning in a decent start. I think he's going to build on that. And it's a lot easier to adjust a Zebby Matthews than a David Festa, because when you need a guy to throw strikes, it becomes a lot more difficult. When you need a guy to maybe sequence a little bit differently, to locate differently, and you can work with that. And that hitters are going to be generally aggressive against him. When hitters are going up there kind of in swing mode, Zebby Matthews can use that in his favor and to his advantage, saying, okay, these guys are expecting me to fill up the zone. I'm going to throw a couple cutters that start off the edge, or I'm going to throw some sliders that start middle away. And so that's the thing that I think he's unlocked too now, where secondaries have gotten so much better that he can attack hitters in different ways. But it's just been amazing seeing the climb from him. And it's got to be one of the more, I would say one of the better underdog stories we've seen in a little bit, because I don't think anybody who's expecting him to get to the big leagues this year, let alone be a guy that's a top 100 prospect, top 100 for us, and someone that it's not only, oh, wow, nice, he's going to get to the big leagues and fill in a role. He could be a middle rotation guy for them moving forward if it all, comes together the way we think it can.
Yeah, this is like more legit of the underdog story where, baseball, the meritocracy that it is, Zebby Matthews just created a role as a mid-rotation arm for himself for the next decade because of what he did in the minor leagues in 2024. Now, there's a guy that we're going to talk about at the end of the show that I think is like, as good, if not better, a story in minor league baseball, because he's been there for a long time and he gets his shot now because he's been arguably the best hitter in minor league baseball this year. But, like that is a different kind of story where he's just a good story, and he's not necessarily a guy that is going to, spoiler alert, be a part of the Arizona Diamondbacks' future plans versus a guy like Zebby Matthews, who is a part of the Minnesota Twins' future plans. Now, the other side of the sword is a really sharp one, and you mentioned that. It's Joe Ryan hitting the injured list with a grade 2 teres major strain that is, what, isn't that back?
Think so.
I think it's back. Rocco Baldelli said, quote, weeks to months for Joe Ryan. He was asked if his season is over. Rocco was asked about Joe Ryan, and he didn't say no, but he said weeks to months, which makes me think yes, because
Yeah.
it's August 13th at this point. It sucks for Joe Ryan. Like, I don't think there's much more analysis that goes into what this means for Joe Ryan. Like, he'll be back next year, and here's to hoping that he's gonna be all right, and he's gonna get back to being the Joe Ryan that he showed us this year, because this is a damn good and damn consistent pitcher, one of the more sneaky consistent pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. But in the macro, this Twins rotation just turned into what? Pablo Lopez, Bailey Ober, who's been throwing the shit out of the ball. Last month, he's been one of the better pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. But then Simeon, Woods Richardson, David Festa, Zebby Matthews. It's fun to get you through the regular season. Is that fun if you get into the ALDS?
Not particularly. I think they need Zebby to really, I think, shine. I mean, Simeon Woods Richardson takes some pressure off, and Festa, I still like him, long term, but I think it's just clear that there's some things he probably still needs to work through a bit before you can really, really rely on him. I still think that's a guy that they can lean on the rest of the season, but we're talking about in the postseason sense. I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting conversation between, whether you even try anyone else other than Simeon Woods Richardson with the way that he's actually thrown pretty well this year. But I think that's why it's great timing for Zebby. It's unfortunate for Joe Ryan, and I believe that muscle is what attaches the scap to the humerus. So you think about when you're pulling that backwards when you're throwing, like you can't throw without that. Like you can't do anything without that. So that obviously makes sense why they're very unsure about when he's going to be able to come back, assuming that he's not available. Pablo Lopez, which I know he hasn't been himself for a lot of this year, can match up with just about anybody. And as you mentioned, the way Ober's throwing, I feel fine with him being the second guy in a rotation if they're swinging it well and the bullpen's pitching the way that it can.
Yeah,
it's not an absolute killer, but it really does take a lot of the excitement and shine away, because you can really get excited about that three-headed monster if they all get hot with those three pitchers, with the offense, with the bullpen. But now it's like, okay, well, we're trying to talk ourselves into Pablo getting hot down the stretch. We're trying to talk ourselves into Bailey Ober maintaining this into the postseason. And now we don't have that third pitcher. Whereas, if you had Joe Ryan still available, throwing the way that he's throwing, you figure he's got a good chance of doing what he's been doing into the postseason. You think Ober, there's a little bit less pressure as he's the 3. And then, Pablo Lopez is, that wild card for you still, but not the all-in wild card. Whereas at this point now, they need Pablo Lopez to be the guy that he was last year, or else they're in trouble. And I still believe that he can be, without a doubt. And there's a lot of peripherals that point towards him being better than, what he's done this year. He still struck out 144 and walked 29. But now all of the importance, I think, is on Pablo Lopez to really step it up.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And frankly, if there's somebody that you're banking on to tick up, he's on the very short list in Major League Baseball, where it's like, hey, man, you got to step up. I think Pablo Lopez is the kind of guy that can step up in this situation. And quite honestly, like, that's what you paid him for. I know you paid him to be a consistent presence. If he's not going to be that consistent presence in 2024, you're going to pay him for that. Hey, let me saddle in and really get going here in mid-August and be awesome for the final 6 weeks. That's what he does. That's what made him, I think a 9-figure caliber pitcher in Major League Baseball, because he can do that when he's not overwhelmingly consistent over the course of 162.
I like that you bring that up, because when he's hot, man, he's a streaky pitcher, which is interesting. And a big part of that is because it's based on the fastball location. When he's locating it, it really plays well at the top. When he's not locating it, it gets hit hard. And he's going to be a guy that could give up plenty of home runs. And this year he's on pace to kind of smash his highest total. Last year it was 24 home runs in 194 innings. He's given up 21 already this year in 129. But the peripherals look still pretty good. The expected ERA is 3.50 versus a 4.74. And he's always been a guy that kind of underperforms the peripherals because, a lot of the time he's given up some home runs, and I think it's just the streakiness, and I don't know. I'd have to know more about how those peripherals are all put together to fully get it. But I think the long ball inclination, like, it plays a part in it. But this is still a dude that, I mean, Ks to walks is still up there with just about anybody that's not like a clear cut ace. And if he gets hot, he can be as good as anybody. And we've seen stretches where he is as dominant as anybody through a handful of starts. So hopefully he can lock in and find that, because it's not like the velocity's down. It's not like, anything looks particularly off with Pablo. It's just been the location.
Yeah. So the Twins, like, kind of remains to be seen where they go in this, but they are in the thick of the American League wildcard hunt. A team that is in the thick of the National League wildcard hunt just made a notable recall from AAA. Jordan Walker is back in the big leagues, and Jordan Walker was hitting a .155 through 20 games to open the year. He was optioned to Memphis. May was bad. And you could say, oh, Jack, but he hit 271. No, in 24 games and 96 plate appearances, the guy that everybody was dreaming on 40 homers from hit a grand total of 0 home runs. And then in June, he hit 240 with 4 of them. And then in July, he hit 213 with 2 of them. In August, he's been awesome. He's 15 for 43. That's 349. He's OPSing over 1,000. And our Cardinals beat GOAT, Katie Woo of The Athletic, reported that he was the logical call-up and replacement for Matt Carpenter, who was unavailable with back tightness. He was the one that hit the shelf. Walker will platoon against left-handed pitching. So he was in the lineup yesterday against Andrew Abbott in Cincinnati, but he's going to hit lefties. The Cardinals have really struggled against lefties. It's nice to have Tommy Pham there. It's nice to have Jordan Walker there now too, but Walker is not quote unquote fixed. He's hot. They're going to put him in positions to succeed. Do you want to push back on him not being fixed? Like, do you think he's fixed?
No, I don't think he's fixed. It's better. It's definitely better. But we're a couple weeks removed from me looking at some of the open side video there and saying, where in the world is he? Like, it was a man searching, and that's really tough it was tough to watch. He definitely looks like he's made some improvements, and like there was little things, like even in his load, like he was bringing his hands back up again. Everything was so disconnected, and he simplified it for sure. And it looks like he's found some moves that work for him. And just being a big guy, it seems like he's going to be very, very streaky until he finds how to get back to his baseline and his moves. We saw him find it at the end of last year, and we saw him lose it again. And now we saw him lose it this year. And now it seems like he's kind of found it again, but he's going to get brought up to the big leagues. And I like the move because he deserves to be up there, and he should have got more opportunity at the big league level and the opportunity to work with big league hitting coaches and all that good stuff. But I also, on the other side, like, it's just the timing of it. It stinks, but would have loved to have seen him have a little bit more runway of this newfound feel and this improvement in the box that over his last 15 games has given him an OPS north of 1,000. It's not like he's particularly mashed lefties either. Like, it's been pretty even splits. And even in the beginning of the year, he's really struggled against changeups. So like that is something that could still continue to affect him some. I'm interested to see how it all looks. I'm excited that he's getting another opportunity, and I'm excited that he's hot. But this is a big test for him, considering that he just found it, and they're going to bring him right back up. We saw it work for Jackson Holiday, who didn't look nearly as lost when he went back to AAA as we saw Walker, because even when Walker went back to AAA, like, it was ugly, as you mentioned. You just kind of walked us through it. But maybe that riding a hot streak into the big leagues here will give him some of that confidence, and as they put him into some more favorable situations, he can keep rolling from there. But it's interesting. The last thing I'll note is he has been particularly hot against lefties of late. So that might be part of the reason why. Like, one of the home runs came off Doug Nikhazy, another one came off of Hayden Harris. But it's a tough spot for him to be in.
It's a really tough spot. Kind of tying it back to the Holiday point that you made. Holiday was good for longer in the minor leagues. Like, we're talking about 10 games. Holiday was good for 25, 30.
And then just went crazy for 10. Yeah.
And went crazy for 10, but he was good for the 20 prior to that. I'm thinking
Yeah.
about how Detroit's handling Spencer Torkelson too, because Tork is OPSing like 850 right now in AAA. He was lost and then he got a little bit hotter. And then there was like a 2 week stretch there where he looked like Tork. It was like, oh, well, you going to get him up now? The Tigers' answer was no. They're going to see if this is sustainable. And guess what? He's coming off a decently rough week at the AAA level. So, we're talking about this Tigers team that has more room to be patient than the Cardinals because the Tigers are out of a wild card chase and the Cardinals are in a wild card chase. But we're talking about a Tigers team that is like, hey, you're hot, you're not fixed. The Cardinals are like, hey, you're hot, you're here.
Yeah.
Even if he's not fixed, like he's just hot, so he's here. I'm not saying that they're panicking because this was the logical move. And, even if you get like a heavily protected Jordan Walker, it's still Jordan Walker on your roster, and that can help regardless of what he looks like. But man, this progression of Jordan Walker in 2024 was so low on the totem pole of things that I needed to see in 2024, and here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. The positive in this though is that over that 15 game stretch, right, which is 71 plate appearances, only 13 strikeouts. So
Yeah.
you're not seeing him strike out as much. But the problem is not really been as much as of the strikeouts. It's been more the
Ball rate.
ground ball, weak contact, and it's because his mechanics just get so out of whack so quickly. So hopefully he can keep it rolling at the big league level. I'm glad he's getting an opportunity. But I am going to kind of hold my breath a little bit when I watch him hit. And I think if he has a good couple games, though, I think that'll really help because I have to imagine that a lot of this is mental as well with the way that, he had kind of been handled the last couple of years and just how much he's had to tinker. And, we know the Cardinals are not afraid to have their players tinker, and he needed to tinker at points. But if you're too tinker happy, you end up chasing your own tail and having a really difficult time finding where you were successful again. And remember, this is a guy that demolished upper minors pitching, and demolished Double-A as a teenager, basically, as a young hitter. You can't do that. Even if it doesn't totally translate to the big leagues, you can't do that unless you have something working for you mechanically.
And furthering that point, you start to lose the athleticism in you. Like Jordan Walker was losing the beast of a human being that he was, that made him Jordan Walker, that made him a top 10 prospect in all of baseball, that made him the future face of the St. Louis Cardinals. He was there because he's a physical specimen that can hit the ball a very long way and was a very advanced hitter at a very young age. He was not there because he was mechanically perfect, right? Now it's like, okay, you become hyper mechanical. So then you lose that athleticism and that physical specimen aspect to you. And then it's like, oh, well, where's the Jordan Walker value here? So I really want to see this guy recapture that Jordan Walker. Problem is, like, it's going to take an off season. And I don't know. When I think Cardinals platoon, I think about Gorman coming up, and Gorman has obviously carved out, good big league role for himself. He's on the bulk end of a platoon. Walker doesn't have that opportunity. No. He's so much more than a short end of the platoon guy.
Absolutely. But, if he can get a little momentum here through the rest of the year, ride that into the offseason, try to build on that. And, he'll be 22 years old at the start of next year still with plenty ahead of him, which is the beautiful thing about him getting up so quickly.
We're going to be nicer about a guy that is destined for Cooperstown in a moment. Before that, quick break. Mookie Betts is back as of Monday afternoon. Mookie Betts is off of the injured list, and he is, Aram, playing where for the LA Dodgers?
Right field.
Right fielder. Back where he won his gold gloves. Mookie is in right. The shortstop experiment is over. I can call that an experiment. Mookie is a very fun watch at second base. Hell, he was a fun watch at shortstop because you see a gold glove right fielder playing shortstop because that's what the team needs. He's back where he's best defensively, and he's back where he can stay healthy well into his late 30s. I'm excited for this, where like we had this moment and it's okay. Finally, Mookie Betts is back to familiar grounds. Was it awesome? And was it, total leadership 101 for Mookie Betts that he hopped over to second base and shortstop the last year and change? For sure. This is better for us. This is better for baseball.
Especially when going into the year, it was always, well, we need to preserve Mookie Betts. And then it's, oh shit, things aren't going to plan. Mookie, Save us. So, I want Mookie Betts preserved, especially with what we're dealing with some of our best players and Mike Trout, just not being available. And I know it's a totally different situation, but I want to see Betts play at a high level till he's 40. And no matter what you say, playing everyday shortstop, especially when you're not fully primed for that, is going to wear you down faster than other positions. It's going to help them defensively, I think, in the grand scheme as well, because of how special he is out there. And Miguel Rojas being back and healthy, he can hold it down at short, like we talked about, just as a defensive-minded guy that actually is having a fine offensive season. If he's giving you anything close to a 700 OPS, and he's actually north of that right now, you're fine. That's your 9-hitter. Go ahead, keep rolling. So we'll see what they do when, if Dalton Rushing comes up or whatever may happen there. But, I love that Mookie's kind of back in a lower impact spot where he's one of the best defenders in the sport. And more importantly, I'm just glad he's back. This is a spark they need, because not like they're playing poorly or anything. They've been playing well, but you have the Padres that are just playing out of this world right now. And they're 3.5 back. And by the way, the D-backs who are also playing out of this world are 3.5 back. So you got two teams that are playing really well that can close that gap potentially. So you get that little spark. And little is underselling it. You get a big spark here with Mookie. That could be that shot and that injection to just help them separate. And it's almost like that. I'm thinking like Olympics, when you have the relay, it's like he might be that anchor to help them just separate from the pack here on the final stretch.
That was a really good shout. Good on you for being up to date with the Olympics and like, hey, how can I relate this to the pressing thing in the world right now? That was awesome.
That's what hosts do, right?
That was phenomenal. Yeah, that was I think that's like TV 101, right? It's hey, relate in 2020, relate everything to Tiger King. In July, August 2024, relate everything to the Olympics. I'm here for it. The other end, you mentioned like the anchor, like it's going to be nice to get some of these pitchers back, but I want to transition again, like negative. I feel like we're just seesawing positive, negative, positive, negative. River Ryan just got hurt. So you get Mookie back. Buehler's slated to start tomorrow, slated to start on Wednesday, which is great. Bobby Miller looks like he's tracking for a return to the Dodger rotation at some point very soon. I keep getting the bullpen updates on Yoshinobu Yamamoto, which is great.
Great.
And then River Ryan hits the shelf when he was shoving in a mano-a-mano matchup with Skeens, and he was winning the matchup with Skeens. Like, he was the one that looked better. Skeens' splinker was vulnerable for the first time in his major league career. I know it's only been like 15 starts, but that was the first time we've seen that guy look pretty vulnerable, and it was on the road at Dodger Stadium, and River Ryan looked freaking phenomenal, and he was cruising. Pitch economy was there. And at about 50 pitches in 4 2/3, 4 1/3?
Yeah.
He's lifted. And I was listening to the Dodger radio broadcast when he was lifted. And apparently David Vassegh, who was on TV that night, talked about Ryan dealing with some blister issues. So I was like, oh, it's just, blisters, we're going to be okay. He'll skip a turn, whatever. And, we'll be fine with River Ryan. UCL sprain, I think I read, and he's done for the year. This is after he missed the start of the year with shoulder.
They coincide, more often than not. And especially, usually if one thing's going, the other one takes over and that happens. Weirdly, too, Yuri Perez was dealing with blister stuff, too. And then it was, and now he needs Tommy John. So that part's also a little bit bizarre. I wonder if you just subconsciously start releasing the ball a bit different. It starts rubbing different parts of your fingers, and that's where you get blisters and kind of areas that weren't really built up callus wise. I don't know, or that's a coincidence, but that was an unfortunate turn there where even the way River Ryan walked off, like sometimes they give you a little bit more of a tell from their face. Like you could tell he was like disappointed, but it didn't look like, oh man, my elbow doesn't feel right. So I was holding out some hope. It's such a shame because he looked so darn good. He had been built up a little bit more to be able to at least go like 75, 80 pitches. And looked like it could be a great rotation piece for them. Very fortunate, and we're very excited about Walker looking like Walker in his first outing back, where he only allowed 1 hit in 5 1/3, sat 94 with that heater, a little bit above that. But it just stinks that it just feels like it's a carousel right now, where it's like guy battles and gets himself back to pitch again, and then somebody else falls down, and then somebody else has to work their way back. And I just feel like with the Dodgers, as much as any team right now, it's that revolving door, and it just doesn't seem like they can keep a handful of guys healthy at once. It's just been a lot of bad luck. But I really feel for River Ryan. Hopefully he can avoid the Tommy John side of things, because that would wipe him out, for quite a bit. He'd probably miss, most of the next 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So hopefully he can avoid that, because, he's waited long enough. Converted infielder that already was making his debut quite late, 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it, like, this guy could potentially, we're hoping he dodges the Tommy John bullet, but like, if he has to undergo that, he might win the Rookie of the Year, as you said, at like 28. So
28 years old.
yeah, like, that's crazy. So hoping for the best with River Ryan. He was so impressive, and it does stink. Also, though, one other positive note: Tommy Edman on rehab again now too.
Yeah.
Looks like
Tommy and Muncy.
Muncy.
Yeah.
They might get a lot of, not everybody. They're not going to get everybody back, but they might get quite a few players back in time to make a crazy push and be the force that everybody assumed that they would be going into this year. Not that they haven't been, but to fully be it.
You mentioned converted infielder on River Ryan's. I've got one more point of the Dodgers, but did you see that play he made on Saturday night against the Pirates? Dude, like, if that ain't the most shortstop thing I've ever seen from a pitcher, that is one of the better plays that I've seen in a while from River Ryan.
I mean, just that was the epitome of athlete on the mound. He said, the converted infielder, and he was converted, like, barely pitched in college. I think it was like UNC Pembroke.
He was a shortstop at UNC Pembroke, which is funny because his older brother Ryder Ryan, who's bounced around, was like just a pitcher at North Carolina. Like, so you got older brother, true pitcher at UNC. This guy's shortstop at Pembroke, and this guy's the top 30 prospect in baseball.
Scouting masterclass from the Dodgers, who snagged him like before he even like threw in an organized game, I think, or like literally had barely thrown in a professional game at the complex, and they snag him for Matt Beatty. So that was a heist from their division rival Padres. But I mean, also just another masterclass drafting situation there from the Padres to have identified him. So wins on both sides, but I don't think Padres fans are celebrating that one. Wishing River Ryan a speedy recovery, and hopefully avoids any major prolonged, time off.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel bad for the 2024 Los Angeles Dodgers.
I do. This is pretty much the only scenario where I would feel bad for them.
Yep. Where you are just dealt blow after blow after blow. And it's like, what do I need to do? I need to make, if I'm sitting in Dave Roberts' office, I'm like, dude, you need to make some sort of deal with the devil to make sure that everybody stays healthy. It's insane, the hand that they've been dealt. And I really wanted to, at the beginning of the year, like, I really wanted to see this billion-dollar team work. I wanted to see there be a direct correlation just for like just so I could sleep soundly at night, knowing that it's like, okay, yes, money does directly correlate to wins. This is how this works. At the end of the day,
it does. I think because I think any other team's dead in the water right now. They're tied, three-way tie for the second best record in Major League Baseball right now.
No, but we've seen Tampa do this for so long. Like, my thought is, okay, you pull the ultimate trump card. They finish, with 115, 120 wins, and they cruise to a World Series victory. I'm like, okay, yes, you can buy a World Series championship. We're not getting that answer this year.
As much as people want to talk about, the payroll differences and things like that, if a team could figure out how to keep their players healthy at even a marginally higher clip than all the other teams, I think that would be more impactful than the payroll inequality. Though there is a very direct correlation to spending and winning, of course. But when it becomes to like a World Series conversation, of course, more of the higher payroll teams are going to make the playoffs. So then naturally more of those teams are going to end up winning the World Series. But, there hasn't been that clear cut of like, okay, you could just spend out $1 billion and you're a shoo-in. And I like that. Like, I like that that's how our sport is. And I think that's how sports are in general. But also, it's unfortunate to not be able to see this Dodgers team fully healthy, clicking on all cylinders. But we're probably going to see that next year with Ohtani on the mound. Hopefully he can stay healthy, and, a lot of the same guys back, full off season to recoup, and we see how things go from there. But still, I wouldn't want anything to do with this team, and they're still going to get a lot of reinforcements on the way, either from a prospect perspective or these vets that seem like they're inching back to being able to return to action.
To your point, the 2022 Houston Astros, I think, had 8 guys start games for them this year. 7 or 8 guys start games for them. Like, they were so healthy in the starting rotation all year, and they win the World Series. If you had the choice between the top payroll in all of baseball and you knew that, 3 of your 6 best players were going to miss half the year, I think I would take the 10th highest payroll in baseball and have everybody be healthy the entire year if you
Yeah.
gave me those options.
The problem is no one has everybody stay healthy. So you might as
Exactly.
well have the highest payroll in
Exactly.
this miserable sport when it comes to health.
Yep. Padres just got a little bit healthier, though. Joe Musgrove is back. Musgrove, by the time you're listening to this, will have a start under his belt. He throws on Monday. Joe Musgrove made a rehab in low A, and he's missed since the end of May with what, bone spurs, right? He was dealing with some
I think
elbow
so.
discomfort.
Yeah.
3 1/3, 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 Ks, and no walks. He was pounding the strike zone, and the stuff apparently looked really sharp for Musgrove.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the best part. Who cares about the results? He hadn't thrown in almost, two plus months.
Yeah.
He sat 95. I understand that it was 46 or 43 pitches, but we haven't seen him sit 95 really since I can't even find an outing in the last couple of years where he's sat 95. Understanding that it may not maintain at 95 when he's at 80 pitches, I still think it's going to be higher than the 92 that he was at in the majority of his starts this year. So if he's sitting 93, 94 even, that might unlock a little bit more for him, because it just seemed like he was struggling to miss bats the same way that he used to with the fastball, and just with the entire arsenal, it just seemed like it was slightly subdued. So if just cleaning up that elbow and getting everything the way that he needed it to be, because clearly he was throwing through some junk and some stuff, if that gets him where he needs to be from a velocity perspective, I think the results will follow. So I'm very eager to see how Musgrove returns, and I think you got to be encouraged overall with the fact that he touched 97 miles an hour in that outing with this fastball. I'll check while you fill in here, but like I don't think that there's been many times this year where he's touched 97, if at all. So I mean that is a really positive. Yeah, I actually have it right now. All 4 of the pitches that he has thrown above 96.0 miles per hour this season were in that rehab outing.
Huh.
So that's a very positive development.
That's very, very positive. I was reading an article in the San Diego Union Tribune. I think Kevin Acee is awesome, and I thought this headline was hilarious. I was like, this is too simple from this guy to not be a really good read. The title of the article, the headline is, Padres expect same Joe Musgrove in return, but just a little different. I was like, explain. And then I read it and I was like, that's right. This guy's awesome. I love this. In essence, Ruben Niebla, who's the pitching coach, was asked, hey, what do you expect from Musgrove? And he said, a dog, same as usual. But apparently the delivery has been tinkered a little bit. It's a lot more lower half centric. And Kevin notes, and I'm not going to spoil the entire article. I highly recommend you go read this on the San Diego Union Tribune. But he mentions that it allows him to alleviate some of that stress by focusing more on his lower half and being a little bit more leggy. A lot of people forget that this guy is a big, big human being. Joe Musgrove may not look like it on the mound, but he's 6'5", 230. And if he can create a little bit more from his lower half, and if he can take that much stress off of his arm, we're talking about a guy that I know is 31 years old right now, and I know he struggled to stay on the mound. If he tinkered his delivery to a point where A, he's achieving more velo, and it sounds like the lower half certainly helped with that. B, like, he can pitch very deep into his 30s if that's the case, because he's so big. I feel like it doesn't take much effort if you are focused on your legs to get this thing going.
Yeah, and it just seems like there was also just a lot of like nagging stuff because of, I think, these little ailments, but it wasn't like there's some major issues that he's been dealing with. So hopefully between that and cleaning up, the if it was bone spurs, I don't remember exactly what it was, like that hopefully puts him in a good position moving forward. Then I don't know what the latest is on Tatis. I don't know if that was mentioned at all recently either, but you figure he's going to get back hopefully at some point. And we'll see whatever they can get from you, Darvish. You hope that he can come back. But I mean, this is a team that's only going to get stronger, I think, overall. So yeah, I'm very excited about what I think they're building here. And Cease has to throw better than he did last time out, but he's been throwing great overall over the last month plus. Michael King continues to be solid. Musgrove just has to be that solid third option and be another mid threes guy for them. And I think that offense and that elite bullpen can do the rest. And then we'll see what they get from some of the other players that are, out right now.
I just read possible September for Tatis. So he started baseball activities. He resumed baseball activities a couple days ago, 4 or 5 days ago. So he is doing some light running. He's playing catch and he's taking some swings. So hopefully that means, mid to late September, Tatis is back for the final push towards the postseason and would be back for the postseason. So they're getting a little bit healthier. Darvish is a case that I have no idea.
We don't know. It's restricted list, personal matter involving his family is what Mike Schilt said back in July 7th.
Which is brutal.
Yeah. So hope all is well there and just kind of leave it, open-ended. But if they get anything from him as well, obviously more important things at hand here, but just from a baseball perspective, a team that's already been one of the hottest in Major League Baseball can just continue to add these reinforcements.
No doubt. A team that is snuck back into the conversation. I wouldn't say the race, but the conversation. The San Francisco Giants just got a save from their closer, Ryan Walker. And I was tagged in a comment on Twitter that was something like Ryan Walker with a save for the Giants gives Jack even more ammo for the Just Baseball Show. I'm like, yes, for sure. They optioned Camilo Doval, and Doval sporting a 4.7 ERA after a 2.5 in 22 and a 2.9 last year. This guy's August was brutal. He had 3 straight poor outings, and that resulted in him being optioned. And I saw Andrew Baggerly, who covers the Giants for The Athletic, tweet 1 All-Star appearance, 2 coaching staffs that met their wits' end or something with Doval. Felt like a shot.
That was a shot.
That was a big-time shot. But, man, he wasn't performing well enough to hold that closer role. I thought they were just going to move him to low leverage. There has to be something a little bit deeper going on here. If we're going to get that shot from a guy that is that well respected, Andrew Baggerly, I would think
it might just be a fact. It's not even really a shot. I guess it's a. I mean, no matter what, I guess it's a shot. But if it's valid and he's telling the truth, it's important context, because otherwise people can say, why would you option him? He's one of the nastiest relievers. Why would you not put him in lower leverage first? What are we doing here? How are we not serious about winning? Blah, blah, blah. It would turn into a whole thing. So it's kind of necessary context that he was disruptive to the clubhouse potentially or staff or whatever it may be that, might make some sense. The part that confuses me on both sides is that there were, plenty of reports throughout, I think, the offseason and early part of this year that the Giants had approached him about an extension. So if we're talking about 2 staffs that had struggled with him, that means that it would have been before this year. And they still approached him about an extension. He reportedly had turned it down for about $50 million. That might be a bag fumble. That might be a Dennis Schroeder-esque bag fumble there from Doval, but also does kind of make me pause a bit about the 2 staffs being sick of him, but maybe they just thought he was so dominant. Who cares? Closers are always eccentric. Let's deal with it. Regardless, that is a big blow because, this is a team that does need their bullpen to be elite to really have a chance. The other aspect of it, though, is that Ryan Walker has a 2.2 ERA. Taylor Rogers and Tyler Rogers are both sub-3, and Jordan Hicks now makes the move from the rotation, has made the move recently to the bullpen. So now that's a guy that you end up just putting into higher leverage more anyways. And that was somebody that I was kind of concerned about the rest of the year, pushing him too far innings-wise. Now he's able to get back into that high leverage role, which we've seen him succeed in. So they have contingency plans and they're okay. Of course, when you're on the fringes, you want to try to be dominant in one area, and Doval pitching at the best of his ability could make that bullpen potentially elite. Yeah. It could still be really darn good, and they've got a lot of different arms there that can help them. But it's been amazing seeing them kind of climb back into it, and maybe just getting the clubhouse right and making some tough decisions might be something that kind of helps propel them. But I mean, with the way some of their guys are playing, with the way that Tyler Fitzgerald is playing, he's 12 homers and 12 stolen bases and 181 plate appearances, by the way. It's like a 40-40 pace. I mean, they've had a lot of things go their way recently. So if that's the one thing that doesn't, and it's not like he was throwing well before anyways, might not be that big of a loss for them in the short term. In the long term, it would be. But right now, if we're talking about just trying to make a push, it's not like he was throwing that well anyways. And his first outing in AAA, he didn't look good either. He just gave up a couple runs.
So they happened all late. If you go hitter by hitter, I saw this from Josh Sushan, who is he's the voice of the Albuquerque Isotopes. First AAA outing for him. 2 Ks immediately, 1 pitch from an immaculate inning. Then 4 straight balls for a walk to Greg Jones. Then an RBI triple from Nolan Jones. Then an RBI single from Elahuris Montero. So things snowballed on him real quick. The exact tweet from Andrew Baggerly, Camilo Doval, 1 all-star appearance, 2 coaching staffs whose patience he has exhausted. And I stumbled again upon this video that I totally forgot about from mid-June. He entered a ball game with an 11-run lead over, I don't remember who it was against. I think it was Oakland. But he entered with an 11-run lead. He, really struggled. He got taken out, lifted for Ryan Walker, came in, just chucked a Powerade cooler in his glove in the dugout. Like, that might be who he is. Like, well,
yeah, and like guys do that all the time, but yeah, if that's a theme. Also, yeah, you were up 11. Like, yeah, you could be pissed about it, but
yeah, but like, don't blow up a Powerade cooler if you were up 11 runs.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's young still and a quick rise to prominence, so we'll see how he handles this adversity, because this really is kind of the first, at least at the big league level, the first adversity he's really faced over any extended period of time.
Yep. We're going to wrap up with 3 good stories, but one more quick break. Welcome back, Mr. Carroll. Corbin Carroll in the first half of this season. Carroll had an 80 WRC plus, I want to say. He's got a 150 WRC plus in the second half now. Carroll homered, back-to-back games on Saturday and Sunday against Philly. I'm not, saying the Corbin Carroll's the Corbin Carroll at 2023, but he looks a hell of a lot better than he did before the All-Star break. Have you had the chance to look at, maybe the side view, the open side view of his swing? Like, has it changed at all? Or is it, hey, he's just running into some baseballs over the last couple of weeks and it's been really nice to see?
No, I think it looks better. It's not extreme, but it's definitely looks better. And sometimes it just takes a little bit more time than you think, I guess. I'm surprised it took this long. We're talking about it, like just not really seeing the significant adjustment being made. And there still hasn't really been a major adjustment, but he's not swinging from like a full split anymore. It's been a bit more narrow, and it seems like he's starting it earlier and he's more in rhythm. But it does really seem like he's minimized that overstriding that would creep in, because there'd be times where then he is a bit shorter, gets a good swing off, and then he's right back to overstriding. And I think when you look at the stride being shorter and a little bit more controlled, it's still a long stride. He's making a lot more contact now in velocity. And if you remember the piece that I put together on it, was all about how the barrel was getting so stuck behind him because he was drifting so far forward that it would lag, and he'd really struggle with fastballs and velocity at the top. And then also would just be so far on his front foot that he'd be rolling over on secondary stuff. He's elevating a lot more consistently now, and he's not missing fastballs. And that's kind of uncharted territory to a degree. Like, he's not as productive as you like to see against the fastballs, but he's fouling them off. He's making more contact. The in-zone whiff rates are significantly lower over this span. But like, I still would like to see him be a little bit more consistently productive against fastballs. And that's still been some of the challenge for him. But seeing the difference and if you just look at the batted ball data and how much more he's elevating, it's night and day. I mean, the last 25 games, he's got a ground ball rate of 37% and a hard hit launch angle of 21 degrees. So just every ball that he's hit hard, what's the average launch angle there? Before that, it was a ground ball rate of about 47% and a hard hit launch angle of 7 degrees. So I know it's a small sample on the positive side, but that's such a stark difference that there has to be something there that's clicking with him. Even if that doesn't mean that he's fully back, as you alluded to 2023, Corbin Carroll, him even being 60% of 2023 Corbin Carroll is a huge boost for a team that's playing good ball right now. And I think a big reason why is because of how he's been playing. But the other aspect that we talked about in that piece was pulling the ball in the air.
Yeah.
How much he was struggling to do that because of how much he was drifting. He's pulling the ball in the air again. Like even over this stretch, several pulled home runs, 8 homers in his last 25 games. Like there's clearly something that's clicked here for him, and hopefully he can maintain it. But we were struggling to see anything pulled with authority before. And now over these last 25 games, he's pulled 5 homers alone. That's more than he had, I think, the entire season prior. It actually is 100% more than he had the entire season prior. He only had 1 pulled home run, which was on a Dylan Cease fastball, which actually still came on the 7th. So I don't even know if I count that, July 7th. So like you could almost spill that into this hot stretch. So really, he did not have a single pulled home run prior to June 1st or July 1st, excuse me. And now he's got, if you go from July 1st, he's got 7 of them. So, or 6 of them. It's a great spot to be.
That's a great spot to be. You mentioned if he's 60% of what he was, they're in a good spot. I'm just thinking like he and Ketel Marte have effectively swapped roles from last year, where Corbin Carroll was the MVP candidate and was the runaway rookie of the year and one of the better players in all of Major League Baseball. And he was the guy that was leading that team on that World Series run, on that wild card berth. And Ketel Marte was a great Robin. Mm-hmm. All you got to ask from Corbin Carroll this year is to be Robin, because Ketel Marte is being a hell of a Batman right now. So like
from the right side, he's Barry Bonds. If that's somehow better than Batman, in my mind, that is.
Is it?
Yeah, I think Barry Bonds trumps Batman on a baseball field.
Let's do blind ranking. Barry Bonds and Batman. Reply in the YouTube comments. What's better, Barry Bonds or Batman?
I don't know enough about Batman, but I don't know what he's pulling out to hit that many consistent home runs and walk that much.
I thought his whole thing was like flawed hero. Like, isn't he a
flawed? Well, Bonds is kind of flawed hero.
Yeah, I'd say so.
A little bit, but it's such a stark difference in the batted ball data that I think he could be even more than that. I think he could be close to Corbin Carroll. But yeah, I mean, if he's just close to that, if he's 2/3 of that, they've added so much around him. Like it's really slept on about how great Jock Peterson has been. Yeah. They're gonna get Moreno back, hopefully sooner rather than later.
How about Suarez stepping up over the last 2 months?
Amazing.
Yeah,
he's been amazing. Wade. So I mean, they're in a really solid spot, and it's funny. I was getting really concerned just because like how many at bats until we see a tangible adjustment, and I hope we got to see it kind of be more prolonged, the success here, but. He was too good to stink the whole year. Right? They're like, he's going to have a down year no matter what when you look back at it. And it's going to be like, oh, wow, look at that sophomore slump. But there was no way he was going to be bad the entire year, right? Like Corbin Carroll is too good for that. So it's nice to see that actually like affirmed.
I don't know. Like on June 30th, I was thinking he might just be bad.
I was thinking that. No, I 100% was thinking that. But now it's like, okay, thank goodness. Yeah, he's too good for this. Because before June 30th, we thought no chance. He has to figure this out. So it just calms me down from a guy that I thought would be like, and still do believe will be like one of baseball's next superstars, and it already's kind of become that. If you can't figure it out over 162, you might not figure it out enough in enough time to salvage the season and make it a 4-win year, 5-win year and have overall good numbers. But if you can't figure it out to even have a good stretch, then I start to get a little worried.
Yeah. No doubt, but it seems like he's turned a corner, and we haven't answered to how many at bats is it going to take to figure something out. I think the answer was 250 or so.
Yeah, I would say just about 300.
Yeah, 300. So, all right, it's not a great number, but it's a hell of a lot better than not knowing what the number is going to be. 2 more guys that I want to talk about that have made their big league debuts recently. Adrian Del Castillo, speaking of the Arizona Diamondbacks, 24-year-old from Miami. Did you know him at all?
I don't think I overlapped with him. He went to Gulliver Prep, and we played them my sophomore year. That's where Joe Dunand was their guy at the time.
Oh, A-Rod's.
Yeah, A-Rod's nephew. Yeah. But I don't think he was quite up yet. Now I'm finally so old that like the players that are coming up and are a little bit older are still just, I missed them. So no, but a lot of mutual friends or mutual people in baseball world. Yeah. And then he went to the University of Miami, so I got to watch him a lot there because I used to love to go to the games. Every time they played Duke, I'd go when I was in town, go watch my buddies play. And he was always such an impressive hitter. The question had always been, is he going to stick behind the dish? And then he developed a ton behind the dish, but then the bat wasn't totally translating the same way. It was kind of a down draft year at Miami. And then the first couple of years were kind of meh offensively. Yes, it's been in the PCL this year, but he has really just kicked it into another gear where he's elevating a ton. He's hitting the ball really hard and he's making enough contact. The underlying batted ball data, whether it was in the PCL or not, has been phenomenal. And I think this guy's found something to be an offensive piece. The fact that it's also come along a little bit behind the dish is great too. And no matter what, even if he hits a wall here, he's really helped them continue this hot streak when it could have got ugly quick when you don't have Moreno, who was really hot and a big part of their hot streak, getting hurt. And now you got to go to your backup, who it's a pretty big drop off in Arizona. Now having a guy that can plug in and be an offensive piece too, and kind of pick up some of the slack there, he's really served a role nicely, even if he doesn't do anything else from here on out.
And he started his big league career 7 for 12 in his first 3 games. And his first homer was a walk-off homer against the fucking Philadelphia Phillies. But this guy was leading minor league baseball in hits. In 100 games exactly, Adrian Del Castillo was slashing 319, 403, 608. PCL or not, that's really impressive. That's a 10-10 OPS, one of the very few qualified minor league hitters with an OPS over 1,000. And this guy in 100 games had 36 doubles and 24 jacks and kept the K rate in check and then some. It just seems like it's a well-rounded offensive profile. Like, you look at the numbers in 2022, he was not good in minor league baseball. In 2023, 2 very hitter-friendly environments, and like, it was not that good. Like, you see an 814 OPS. What does that mean in Amarillo and Reno? Not much. Like
in Reno, Reno, not much.
No, like, and I don't have the WRC plus in front of me right now, but I have to assume that's either 100 or slightly below. But this year, again, like, he's been one of the better hitters in minor league baseball. And it's kind of nice that you can inject the minor league's hits leader into the lineup when your young, super promising backstop goes down.
Absolutely. And so Reno is sneaky, like very close to course in terms of elevation and environment. So the PCL is very hitter friendly, but you can see some home road splits there in Albuquerque. So his numbers at home in Reno, 346, 436, 670 slash line. Like, it's an 1106 OPS. That's ridiculous. Yeah. But when you see his numbers on the road, I think that's like more understandable of just a guy that really clicked in AAA and has put things together, even if it's still a slightly hitter friendly environment on the road. 295, 372, 551 slash line. That's a 923 OPS. So you account for some of the other environments being slightly hitter friendly. You say like in a neutral spot to mid 800s, high 800s OPS. That's still a guy that really had things click offensively. And I think has really tapped into that power. Only a 33% ground ball rate and a 90th percentile exit velocity of 105. That screams plus game power. Yeah. So it's just a matter of whether he can hit enough at the big league level, and clearly took some steps in the right direction, only striking out 17% of the time, even combining the big league stint so far. So it'll be fun to see what they do when Moreno comes back. If Del Castillo kind of stays in some sort of like bench power role, of course you want him to develop more, but I think he's pretty developed and you can worry about the rest later. He's already going to be 25 very soon. So I hope they keep him up in the big leagues and he can be some sort of platoon bench power role, like third catcher, or even maybe he shows enough to be the backup catcher for them, even though he doesn't kind of exemplify what you generally want from a backup. But Moreno's so solid defensively, maybe you go a little bit more offensive driven with your backup.
I'm cool changing the definition of backup catcher. Like, if it's, I feel like backup catcher just means 550 OPS now, and I'm good without that. Like, I'd prefer
with
a guy
framing.
Yeah, like awesome. Yeah, the +6 framing runs at year's end. It's like, yeah, I would kind of like a masher at the at the end of the bench, quote unquote, a 4-man bench that can pop in and deal with it a little bit. I do think the definition of the backup catcher will change when the challenge system eventually gets into Major League Baseball, because like framing sort of kind of goes away there, and there's more of that emphasis on offensive production.
There's several backup catchers in Major League Baseball right now that I would go to Dontrelle Willis off the bench before, and like as a pinch hitter. Yes. And like, I just, why does it have to be that big of a drop off? Like, I've seen, I don't want to be mean about certain names. Like,
like Grandal. You can be mean about
yeah, we can be, like Grandal. I don't want to serve in any more names, but that's
sorry, serve in with 2 E's. Is that right?
I don't know.
One more name that we got to talk about is Andres Chaparro. And if Adrian Del Castillo wasn't, a top 5 hitter in minor league baseball this year, Chaparro is. And they were teammates in Reno for a while. Andres Chaparro is the feel-good story of, I think, the big leagues in the last, couple of weeks here. Chaparro spent 8 years in the minor leagues. And you say, well, he's only 25 years old. Signed as an international free agent guy. It was 4 years in short season ball. It was age 17, he was in the Dominican Summer League. 2017, his age 18 season, he was in the Appy League. He was in the New York Penn League in 18 and 19.
Which doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't exist anymore. COVID wipes out 20. So effectively 9 years, from signing to getting to the show. 2021, low A and high A in 850 OPS. He hit. 2022, 71 games, most of which in double A, a 962 OPS. He hit.
He hits pumps.
Yeah, dude. 2023, the entire year with Scranton, a 780 OPS, he had 25 homers. He hit. And this year with Reno, 95 games, slashed 332, 403, 564 with 19 pumps. He's moved in that Floro deal. He was a throw-in after he was a minor league free agent signing. He got to minor league free agency and he left the Yankees. He went to the Diamondbacks and he was part of that Floro deal, went to Washington, and 10 games in Rochester. This guy hit 286, but had 4 homers in 10 games. And now, after effectively 9 years of minor league baseball, this guy's a big leaguer for the Washington Nats. These are the stories I root for. These are the guys that I love.
Well, I also love the there's nothing. I think there's no bigger flex as a general manager. If you're Mike Hazen, like you signed a minor league free agent and turned that into like your 7th inning guy.
Yeah.
Pretty sick. But Chaparro was mashing balls last year too. I'm sure that it was a more expensive minor league deal. Like I don't think that this was like a minimum AAA. So like I'm sure had his choice of teams and picked one where he's going to get to hit in a very hitter friendly environment in Reno. And then, you never know with the third base situation there weren't a ton of guys in the pecking order outside of Gino. And maybe they felt like that was a decent spot, where he could fill in potentially. I don't know how he made his decision, but I would assume that he had plenty of options with the year that he bought himself last year. But even then, like even minor league free agency, at that point, you wonder if you're ever really going to get a legitimate shot. And he just earned it. Like he just forced himself into getting that shot because he had to play well enough to make himself a trade chip. Like who's going to want to, even if he's been incredible, a lot of teams are going to pause before trading for a prospect that they could have signed outright in minor league free agency. Yes. Like there's probably got to be a pride aspect of it too.
Oh yeah.
But for the Nationals here, like why not? Upside is clear from a power perspective. You guys consistently had plus exit velocities. If you look at how many home runs probably hit since the beginning of 2022, it's got to be over 100. I'd assume, or excuse me, it's got to be over 70. I'd assume. Not 100. That'd be crazy. But since the beginning of 2022, I could probably find that out in the next few minutes here. But it's just a fun story. I don't know anything about how the glove's going to look. I don't know anything about whether he's going to hit enough, but he's clearly hit fastballs well. The power is clearly translated enough in games. He's aggressive. I don't know, but it's a fun story. The answer, by the way, since the beginning of 2021 is 94 home runs.
I've got 63? No, 68. 68. 25 plus 23 is 48 plus 20 is 68. 68 home runs in the last 3 years.
That's a lot of bombs for a guy that could have just been had by anybody in minor league free agency. So awesome story. And hopefully the Nats give him some run and let him get his feet wet up there.
They ran into this with another guy. Remember, Joey Meneses was a guy that just produced and produced and produced. I don't know if it was to the level of a Chaparro, but Meneses, like, he was much older when he got that big league shot. But in the minor leagues, this guy was, 760 OPS before he got his first shot. He got his first shot with the Nats in 22. But this guy, like, he was consistently one of the better power bats, like the older power bats in AAA. But Chaparro is like the younger, more exciting example of that. And you're right, like a 1-for-1 switch. Dylan Floro at a 205 at the time of trade, and you get a minor league free agent signing in return. Mike Hazen, masterclass.
And then I think with Meneses, he gets released and then signed to play, I believe, in like the Mexican League, and then get signs to play for Oryx in 2018.
In
And
Japan, like his baseball reference register page is unbelievable. You got to scroll for a little bit here.
crazy. Great. And then he elected free agency after the Red Sox signed him in 2020 and put up good numbers there, and they let him walk. And then the Nationals give him a shot, and he ends up, played a good bit in the big league. So pretty cool. I always love these stories, and we're always looking for them. And that's why baseball, with how vast the minor leagues are and how many competitive leagues there are all around the world, there's so many players that can be identified. There's so many cool stories to be identified, and we'll keep looking for them. But this is the latest fun and exciting one. I'm rooting for Chaparro. I'll be tapped in.
Speaking of cool stories, justbaseball.com. Bunch of good editorial stuff pumping over there, spearheaded by Ryan, by Leo, by Eric. They are the men, and we have an excellent staff of writers on that front. Get your merch, as Peter always tells you, and we'll be back to talk more ball with you tomorrow.